There we are. I am not muted. There we go. So I set up the first event, and for some reason it wouldn't let me switch the encoder, so I had to start a new event. And I was going to try to get a link over to the people who were waiting in the first event, but it seems like we've got you here, and I did at least put a comment there. So hopefully everybody will realize it and start popping in here for the live stream. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. Let's see who we got here, and let me go to the correct stream so I can look at the chat. Bear with me. But yeah, we had a hot day today. That's for sure. All right, so where, oh, where is the stream that I'm on? All right, here we go. Yes, let me mute myself so I'm not listening to myself. And it looks like we've got Malav Cocktail, Tori McAvoy, Chapin Roberts, Tiana Confair, Jose J.G. Gonzalez, Robert 1340, Captain Swag, Escape Heartist, Rob Z. Fisherman, and Captain Whack. So what's up, everybody? Captain Whack in Greensboro, Robert 1340 in Wilmington. Yeah, I used to live in Fayetteville a long time ago. Greensboro, that's not Greenville, South Carolina. Greensboro, Virginia, right? Is that where that is? I'm not too great with geography. David Reed, Tiana Confair, I'm single. What's up? All right, so looks like we've got a couple dozen people popped in. Let me make sure that on that other stream that I had initially scheduled that there's nobody still waiting in the live event. So let's see, one waiting, darn. So there's one person waiting in there. Oh, maybe that's me, who knows. Okay, so we got everybody off of the other stream and we're back onto this stream, so perfect. Um, a few things I wanted to go over tonight, just a couple random things. One of the things I wanted to do is read through some of the comments on a couple of my latest videos because that's just always a lot of fun, and I think it's a good way to take the temperature of what the trolls are doing because invariably, you're always going to find trolls whenever you put out a video. It's like it's their full-time job, and they clearly spend a great deal of time in one single comment thread, replying back and forth to just one person's original post in the video comments. But what's kind of surprising to me is the ones where they're spending that much time in basically all of the comments threads. So it really makes you wonder, why these people are so passionate about a topic that they think is ridiculous. And why would they spend so much time of their lives uh, harping on something that they think is stupid and they think the people are crazy, trying to debunk them and just do an awful job of it? Their heart's not really in it most of the time, it seems. But they sure do dedicate a lot of energy and attention to a topic that, I've used the analogy before, but I'm not a big fan of baseball. And what they're doing would be basically like me going out to every single baseball game, not just one team's baseball game, but like all the baseball games and TiVoing the ones I missed. But we're not talking about like major leagues. We're talking like Special Olympics or something. And every time I go out to the games, I heckle them and tell them how bad they are at baseball. And I know that's probably offensive. Nothing against people in the Special Olympics or anything like that. It's an analogy, right? But that's the way I see it. So, like, why would you spend all of your time and effort and energy heckling Special Olympics baseball players if you don't even like baseball, right? I mean, I don't understand. It's crazy. And I guess the only way you can look at it is these people have some other motivation to, defend the globe sort of idiotically and defend the globe, you know, and completely ignore any points that you make and make little silly arguments in semantics and just resort to ad hominem attacks and name calling and never offering a lot of times a shred of evidence. They just make claims that you don't know what you're talking about and you don't understand XYZ, and never offer any sort of argument, rational, coherent, effective argument against any of the topics that are raised in the videos or in the comments threads. But of course, they just do this nonstop. I mean, they must get tired of it, right? I mean, I'm convinced, and this is just my personal opinion, but I'm convinced that, you can tell which ones they are after about 10 minutes or maybe 10 weeks, that they don't, the arguments that they make are canned, and when they paint themselves into a corner, they call you stupid. They really must just get tired of it. But if they're being paid to do something like this, then that makes a lot of sense. And people will say that, oh, that's you need to provide evidence that people are getting paid, but it's a known thing that special interests, whatever that special interest may be, will indeed hire out either just actually robots, a minor form of artificial intelligence online, um, to basically try to sway public opinion, because unfortunately the vast majority of the public doesn't do very thorough research. And the people who are in charge of these hypothetical boiler rooms, if you will, um, they know that. And so they're not really trying to necessarily score points with the flat earthers in this case that they're arguing against, but instead what they're trying to do is score points with people who may be interested in flat earth, but are probably, they're probably not going to do too in-depth research into it, especially if it seems like it's a controversial topic that's way too complicated for them to understand. And, the globe earthers certainly have the advantage because everybody firmly believes in the globe earth and everything. And so they don't even really have to try that hard. They just have to make it appear as if there's a lively debate about this. And one of the best things that they do, or the only things that they do that is effective, I think, is indeed the name calling and the sort of taking this holier than thou, know-it-all, omnipotent attitude, because they have the backing of Lions, and most people just can't come to terms with the fact that theoretical sciences that have no basis in reality at all are not science. They're absolutely not science. That would be like calling, a game of, I don't know, backgammon professional football, right? I mean, it's two totally different things. And but they're preying on the vast majority of people's inability to do in-depth research, and turning them off from it even further by just making it seem as if it's a muddy water discussion with a lot of name calling. And again, this is about a topic that we all know how stupid it sounds when you're coming out of La La Globeland. When you're first approached with this topic, I would almost say that there's probably something wrong with you. No, I'm kidding. But no, there's probably something wrong with you if you just automatically hear about flat Earth and then say, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm a flat earther. And honestly, I think someone that said that to me, I would think they're being disingenuous. But perhaps there are cases like that. And in fact, I I ran into a guy that he used to be my neighbor, lived across the street from me years ago, and not too recently, but I don't know, maybe a year ago, I ran into him at the store, and it had been years since I had seen him. And I told him about flat Earth, and he pretty much thought about it for 10 seconds without even too much proofs, and without even giving him too many proofs or anything. And he was just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe he seemed like he was being genuine, and I think he probably would have gone and researched it more. But he's a pretty open-minded guy. We used to jam, play guitar, once in a while together and stuff. And so, yeah. So he was pretty quick to switch on to flat Earth, I think. But other than him, other than that one guy, you know, usually that's not the case. So it is a process that these people that are shilling, and I believe they're getting paid because there's no other reason. Honestly, I don't see any other reason than financial benefit for somebody to, again, heckle the Special Olympics baseball team when they hate baseball and think it's a stupid sport anyway, right? So with that being said, I wanted to go through the comments of a couple recent videos that I did because there was just some gems in here, and I think you guys might enjoy it. But maybe I'll, you know, tell me what you guys think. Are you guys interested in hearing my take on some of these comments and responses to the comments? And I know there's a bit of a delay between when I'm speaking now and when you guys hear me, but yeah, let me know if you're interested in hearing some of this, some of these comments and my thoughts on it, and really some just absolutely great comments from fellow flat earthers. Yeah, okay. So I guess I'll even screen share so that you guys don't have to, you know, pull up the page yourself. So just bear with me 1 second so I can figure out just indeed how to screen share. All right. I think I'm getting it. Here we go. Cameraman, no. Oh, yeah, here we go. Share your screen. Oh, and I guess I better hide this, right? Let me put something over top of the doggone, what's the name? Put something over top of the doggone, what's the name? Uh, did that work? Let me know if you guys can see my screen. I think you can. I think you can. Oh, I guess I better go over to the live stream. Yeah, so let me know if you guys can see my screen. And once I get a confirmation that you can see my screen, then I shall begin. Just want to make sure I'm doing this right. Nope. Okay, so I'm not doing it right. Hold on 1 second. Oh, I have to share it. So let me do that right now. There it goes. Alrighty. So the first one I wanted to go over, well, it doesn't matter which order. And I'm pretty sure you guys should be able to see it now because it looks like I'm getting it on my end. So great, Amundo. This recent video I did, barometric gradient proves the globe. I think this was the one of them. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I got a comment from Dell, Beyond the Imaginary Curve. Does some really great stuff. I don't know if you guys saw, he was on that non sequitur show with Red's Rhetoric and what's his face, Jim Panda, and it was pretty funny. That guy should be in like the next Jason Statham movie, right? He'd do great in those like Irish mob movies, wouldn't he? So where are the comments that I was relying to before? Sorry, bear with me. I guess I should have had this queued up a little bit better, but oh, maybe this wasn't. Oh, here was the one. Yeah, here was the one. Okay. So yeah, this was the one about satellites and 5G. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong video. That makes sense. So I don't know if you guys all saw this video, but basically just covering how absurd satellites are and how 5G, you know, the new internet delivery system, and well, not just internet, it's going to be, you know, all wireless forms of communication is going to be through these 5G Instead of big giant cell phone towers every few miles, you're going to have they're going to implement millions and millions all over the place, like microwave oven sized boxes that can be installed on top of telephone poles or like wherever. They don't have to be uh, super tall because they don't broadcast very far at all. They only broadcast relatively short distances because they use millimeter wavelength and super high frequency, like 60 gigahertz, very high frequency, and that does not propagate as well as the 4G lower frequency, in quotes, relatively lower frequency. Doesn't travel as far, it doesn't penetrate objects as well, and so they're going to install these things every couple hundred feet, not just in major cities, not just in suburbs, not just in urban areas, but also in rural areas. They want them everywhere. So essentially, the argument is made that, excuse me, and I'm drinking fruit punch, not drinking alcohol. I don't drink anymore. Um, but you're going to have all of these little tiny uh, millimeter wavelength things all over the place. And the thing is, it's claimed by Globers that, you know, it's necessary to have satellites for things like GPS, and it's necessary to have satellites for things like dish network television. And many people, many Globers even claim that it's necessary to have satellites for cell phones and for international calls. I believe it's claimed that satellites are necessary, but there's lots of claims that satellites are a staple necessary application for modern technology and communications. And so people point to the existence of things like GPS as proof of a globe because it says global positioning systems, therefore the Earth must be a globe, right? But they point to the fact that we supposedly need satellites to support GPS. Now, what's funny is, and I guess we'll get into the comments here. So that sort of sets it up if you guys haven't seen the video. But so there's actually some really good comments here. Like I'll even read this first one from Scientism, but it sounds like quote, sounds like 5G is primed to cause increased skin cancer, which will then obviously be blamed on the sun and therefore justify the use of even more poisonous metallic particles sprayed in the air all over our heads to reduce claimed negative effects of solar radiation, which is caused by us mouth breathers to daring to have the audacity to basically breathe. And he goes on. It's a really awesome comment here. I probably won't read it in its entirety, but I actually did pin it to the top of this video because the dude makes a lot of sense here. Great comment. It actually got a bunch of replies, like 49 replies. So this was a really interesting one because it starts to get into one of these alleged apparent trolls, right? Along with some witty and typical awesome flat earthers. Chris P's the one. So again, the first comment was 1947 GPS was invented, and I would tend to agree. I mean, technology that where they could triangulate on a radio position had been around for a long time. And another thing I know is that the U.S. military was using high altitude weather balloons since during World War II, which would have been before 1947, I believe. I mean, obviously World War II started 1943, 1942, whatever. But so certainly in the 1940s, even the early, mid, whenever in the 1940s, the military was using high altitude weather balloons in order to spy on the enemy. Because if you can get weather balloons up above where they're capable of registering them on the radar, and most certainly 150,000 feet is well above the ceiling for any aircraft at that time. So basically, they could use radio triangulation. They could use communications. They could tap into even their encrypted communications using these arrays of weather balloons, and they could track their radio positions and triangulate on them. I mean, so yeah, I agree that GPS, and it might not have been called GPS, but that technology was around in the 1940s, and I'm pretty sure that Nikola Tesla had invented this sort of technology long before he had died. I just think that he realized, and this is a bit of speculation on my end, but I believe that he realized that pretty much all of the inventions that he was coming up with were being applied to military applications to hurt people indiscriminately, uh, or to nefarious ends. And even the positive technologies that he would come out with, like free electricity for everybody, that would be a big one. They would be completely squashed because the powers that ought not be, specifically J.P. Morgan and Thomas Edison, who were essentially Rothschild and Rockefeller lackeys, more or less. And by the way, the Morgans are one of the 13 bloodlines that you find in, Fritz Springmeier's book, 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's no surprise that people like that would not want the general public to have access to free energy technologies. And so apparently, again, this is a bit of speculation here, but I believe that when Tesla finally passed away in 1943, the federal government, what they did was they seized all of his property under the is like the Alien During Wartime Act. Even though Tesla was indeed a naturalized U.S. citizen, had been for years, so these federal wartime acts on aliens did not apply to him at all. They seized all of his property. And quote unquote returned it without fiddling with it or taking anything, according to them, of course, which we trust them 100%. Right. And so it's really no surprise that right after 1943, you start seeing the development of things like the Loran system. You see the development of just all sorts of things that are clearly Nikola Tesla technologies. I mean, these are the exact same things that he was like pioneering genius in all of this stuff. I mean, that guy was something else. And I think that he had been keeping a lot of this stuff close to the chest for the last, however, for probably his entire life, because he knew the violence of government, and he didn't want to have his efforts and inventions going to harm people. And I guess you could probably say not even over his dead body, or only over his dead body. And eventually, according to my theory here, that's exactly what happened. So anyway, yeah, I got off on a bit of a tangent there, but where were we at here? So Groin Mister comes back with 1973, and I would imagine that would be to verify that, because again, the first satellites were launched into orbit in, I think, 1958, if I'm not mistaken. You can check that. It's in the 50s, late 50s, I believe, when the first satellites were allegedly launched. And so if somebody's putting the date of 1973 here, it's to discredit this original post. But I don't know, maybe it's just a suggestion. I'm sure if you Google what year was GPS invented, it's going to say 1973. But the United States military had been using this in all sorts of advanced applications since the early 1940s. But it wasn't known. I mean, this was top secret stuff. This was not anything that people knew about at that time, except the military people. And by the way, the internet as we know it was, the credit is given to a single guy for inventing the internet, being the first one to have a computer talk to another computer some distance, another state or whatever. However, I can tell you firsthand from military lieutenant colonels that I've spoken with personally, that I did business with for years, that the internet itself was in fact a military, maybe even I think DARPA invention. But that's going a little bit off topic here. The thing is just because it says on Google that GPS was invented in 1973, or on Wikipedia or wherever you find that information, that doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't mean anything at all. So the point here is that if they had the ability to do what is claimed with GPS in the 1940s, with weather balloons and radio towers and what appeared to be parabolic satellite dishes or parabolic radar dishes, they had the ability to do exactly the same sorts of things that we can do today. Now, of course, the technology has gotten a little bit better these days because we have digital instead of analog equipment, but the principles are the same. The principles are very much the same. And so you can call it whatever you want. You can call it GPS, which I submit stands for Geo or Ground Positioning System. But of course, people say it's global positioning system. Therefore, the Earth is a spinning globe in outer space, of course. So yeah, Chris P says the technology was first invented in the late 30s and used in the 40s. Don't doubt it for a minute. Known as GEE DECA, that inspired LORAN, also used in the 1940s, which was then replaced by GPS predecessor LORAN-C in the late 50s. Now, GPS is just another iteration of LORAN, specifically replacing radio towers with imaginary satellites. And I 100% agree. Definitely think that, and here's the way I would put it, if the military could achieve things like what can be achieved with quote-unquote satellites, why in the world would they spend hundreds of billions of dollars to launch quote-unquote satellites to achieve the same ends that they've already achieved with ground-based, Tesla-based, tower-based, and possibly weather balloon-based technologies that cost a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of trying to launch cockamamie rockets into orbit with satellite payloads on them to try to send radio frequency waves anywhere from, say, like 22,000 miles to the geostationary satellites, all the way up to many more dozens of thousands of miles than that. For other satellites, which are doing things like measuring for solar wind, and that specific satellite is supposedly 250,000 miles away, and yet it is able to send radio frequency signals all the way to Earth, and they don't have any problem doing that, even though such a thing is physically impossible. Such radio waves would attenuate or fizzle out and be drowned out by the background radiation, by path loss, and by the simple fact that they don't have enough power on those satellites to have some super duper, like Channel 9 eyewitness news tower. It's just absolutely ridiculous that people actually believe in satellites after being presented with this rational evidence. But again, satellites they go hand in hand with the globe. See, people will say, Globers will say that satellites prove the globe and the globe proves satellites, right? And so they can't admit to either one for some reason. And, NASA did a very good job faking the Apollo moon landings back in the late 60s, early 70s, because the entire purpose of that mission was to convince people that the moon was a terra firma object in space that they could walk around on, just like Earth is. And people use to this day NASA landing on the moon as proof that the Earth is a globe. And one thing I would add here, going off on another tangent, is that even if the moon is a sphere, even if it is a terra firma sphere, then you can walk around on it, which I don't think it is. But even if it was, that doesn't make the Earth a spinning ball in space, right? So anyway, going right along, this is where it starts with this Latoro del Jaguar. He says, guys, the patent of GPS specifies that it operates over satellite. Any idea that GPS doesn't work with satellites is a myth, and it always and only and it's always and only held by amateurs. And I'll just have you know, this guy really, really loves to call other people amateurs. But and you know, this is the mentality of many people. Although I don't think that this is his actual mentality, because I believe that this guy is a troll, maybe a paid shill, but this is clear psychology to me that's targeted at a specific cross section of the population, which is a large cross section of the population, and basically it doesn't make any claims or refutation to the claims made in the video. It doesn't provide any sort of evidence, and this is a response to Chris P, by the way, the one that we just read in terms of the imaginary satellites. But it just shows that by calling people amateurs, claiming that, you know, satellites are a myth, anyone that holds this opinion is you know, amateur. Then, because the patent specifies that it operates by a satellite, whoop-de-doo. Um, but that sort of tactic actually works very well, because honestly, there is no logical argument against what this guy Chris P is saying, or the points that were raised in the video. And so they have to resort to essentially damage control and trying to prevent as many people from getting this as possible. Now, this is a very, very, in my opinion, this is a very, very last ditch attempt, because you see, it's very clear to me and many other YouTubers that YouTube is absolutely placing our video in limited accessibility mode. They actually use a term for this by Google's very own CEO. I don't think I got the term right, but it's basically what they do is they don't delete your videos, the ones that they don't like, or the ones that they don't agree with, or the ones that are controversial, without defining what is controversial, who's to decide what is controversial, and who is to decide what is controversial enough to censor your users. So it's very vague language, but basically they have admitted that if they don't agree with your content, then they will basically put it so that it's more difficult for people to find, it's more difficult for new people to find. And, you know, like if a video that you put out is trending with your subscribers and it's getting good thumbs up ratios and stuff, well, what YouTube will normally do is put that into the suggested feed for new users that have never seen this content creators videos. And that's how, you know, YouTube has always been, you know, for a long, long time, not for the last couple years or so. But so basically what they're doing is they're censoring YouTubers, sort of, you know, dry censoring, right? So they will demonetize you. They will take your videos down. They will remove your view counts. They will unsubscribe your subscribers. So that's a little bit more nefarious, but they will also just make it so that people won't find your videos unless they're specifically searching for it, or specifically searching for your videos. So, you know, you've got this censorship issue that's preventing the flat earth and other topics from getting out into the mainstream. And so when you do get new people looking at your videos, I think it's very, very important, and not for any personal gain or anything, but it's very important that new people start getting good information about flat earth. And it's just becoming less and less possible with YouTube inherently and passively. But then the ones that do find, you know, your stuff or whatever, they're being trolled, or even if they're not commenting, a lot of people read through the comments, and there is a psychological operation going on here. I do believe it. And the people that are making these just insulting and degrading and belittling comments about flat Earth and other hot potatoes, um, they have multiple accounts. They tend to post similar things and always agree with one another and pat each other on the back for oftentimes points and arguments that hold absolutely no water whatsoever. And it makes you wonder how much of that is group mentality and confirmation bias and brainwashing into the globe, and how much of this is a concerted effort by a small group of people to try to stifle the flat Earth movement, not because they necessarily believe in the globe Earth, but because they want to make a paycheck. It's the only thing I can think of, right? Because honestly, nobody in their right mind would ever dedicate as much time and energy as these types of people into something so stupid. So again, he says, guys, the patent of the GPS specifies that it operates over satellites. Well, pack up the dang show. The Earth must be a globe and NASA's on the up and up. Any idea that GPS doesn't work with satellites is a myth, and it's always and only held by amateurs. Wow. So reading down, science is ace. Chris P. proved the satellites are imaginary, or STFU. Wow. So we have to prove that satellites are imaginary. Right. And that's actually what I did in this video and another video that I linked up to these guys later. But satellites are so not real, it's not even funny. And again, the reasons I know this is because even if the Earth was a globe, it would be completely impractical, way too costly, and redundant, and unpredictable when you have technologies that have been around for how long ago was 1945? Right, 55, 65, almost 75 years. So, you know, it the whole thing is completely obsolete, honestly, to try to send satellites into orbit. Completely obsolete because, again, weather balloons can achieve the same thing. But we're stuck with this propaganda, and I believe that people like this are trying to, again, do damage control and maintain the status quo. So, so Fish Matrix says Jaguar, wow, so you can see 26,000 miles up at airplane-sized vehicles. That's amazing. Laughing out loud. And of course, they're satellites. There's no doubt in your mind, right? I mean, you can see them so clearly, and there's no way they could be anything else but what you say they are, not to mention your amazing vision. It's a damn good point. That's a damn good point. Because, again, if people claim that they can see satellites with the naked eye, that means that they're not seeing satellites. Because if a satellite, like the ISS, I think is at about 250 miles, supposedly the size of a football field. Frankly, that's the biggest satellite that is very, very close. That's about as close as satellites get to the Earth in low Earth orbit, allegedly. Okay, so the biggest and lowest orbiting satellite could not be seen from 250 miles away, for crying out loud. So the fact that we can see what appears to be the ISS, and Jaron did a video recently where he caught it transiting the full moon, that right there proves that the ISS is a lie. It's not a football field sized object 250 miles away. It couldn't be, or you'd never see it. Could you imagine looking, let's say there's a football field turned 90 degrees on its side, and You can't have the operation of well, not perspective, but you can't have the ground there. So you have to be in space, okay, because you're looking up in space to the ISS. But back that upturned football field 10 miles away, I highly doubt you could even see it then. Maybe. Well, there'd be haze and stuff, so you're in a vacuum as well. Back it up 50 miles away, and I'm 100% sure you wouldn't be able to see it. And then you start getting into 100 miles and 150 miles, 200 miles, 250 miles. It's just absolutely ridiculous that people don't get this. They'll say, well, the ISS is real because we can see it. But the fact that you can see it proves that NASA's claims about whatever that thing is up there are lies, absolute lies. Now, the other satellites that people claim that they can see are much, much further, many of them, thousands of miles away, and much, much smaller than the ISS. But of course, we can still see them with the naked eye or even with a telescope. I don't give a damn which. You wouldn't be able to see it from that far. So the very claims that these globe earthers are making about being able to see a satellite completely debunks satellites being what NASA and the et al. Claim that they are. Absolutely ridiculous, but moving right along. And I love that comment from Fish Matrix. He nailed it. So you can see 26,000 miles up at airplane-sized vehicles. Yep, sure you can. You can barely see some airplanes at on a clear day. You can barely see them at 30,000 feet, right? So here comes Latoro del Jaguar again. So Fish Matrix, there are telescopes for that. They can be tracked with satellite tracking apps. Where is the edge? So this is just, and maybe this guy's not a shill. I don't know, because people who ask where is the edge, um, that's kind of an honest question. I think for people who are just looking at this topic for the first time. But at the same time, that's one of those things where they could also be planting seeds into the minds of people who are possibly looking at flat Earth for the first time. So people are going to be like, well, yeah, where is the edge? Good point. And again, the reason I think that this is so irrelevant is because I don't think that there is an edge. And even if there was an edge, we aren't able to go south from the Antarctic, south from the outer semiplane, to find out what is beyond it. But this question implies, or it actually proves to me, that this person hasn't looked into flat Earth, which is just typical. That is, every single person that is a globe earther appears to know absolutely nothing about the flat Earth proofs. So while it is frustrating, we were all there at once, but I think that if you're going to go to the degree to posting just ad nauseum on flat Earth videos, that you should at least do a little homework on it first. And so, and especially if he's posting on one of my videos, because I make the statement that flat Earth is mutually exclusive to infinite space. You can't have one and the other. It's one or the other. And the flat Earth reality has absolutely no place whatsoever in infinite space. So, like, I'm 100% positive that if you walk to the edge, if there is an edge, you're not going to fall off into space. And so that's really one of the main things that leads me to believe that there isn't an edge, is because there is no space. You can't have infinite space with flat Earth. And so the idea of an edge doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. If there is an edge, I won't be too surprised. And maybe there's something, down below that edge, but I just don't see reality ending somewhere south of the Antarctic. And there is quite a lot of historical evidence to support the notion that there is more land beyond the Antarctic. And I think that if there was an edge, or if there was some solid boundary like a glass dome, which I don't believe in, there may be a non-physical or even semi-physical dome-like structure in the magnetosphere or magnetoplane. adherent to the Earth's magnetic field. There may be something like that up there, but I don't believe that if there is any sort of physical thing that is up in, way up in the sky, like a dome, and that's I'm on a limb here because I don't believe in any of that. But we're talking about possibly like super light gases like hydrogen and helium freezing way up there and somehow adhering to the magnetic field that's way up there. Because honestly, I believe that density and buoyancy um, have a lot to do with electromagnetism. What goes up must come down has a lot to do with the static electric charge of the Earth, I believe. Thanks a lot. And the fact that helium rises and rises and rises above all of the higher density gases, I think at some point we have to admit that it's adhering to a certain harmonic resonancy of the Earth's magnetic field as a possibility. And if that's the case, then if those sort of gases could freeze up there and somehow be compelled to adhere to the Earth's torus shape or toroidal shape magnetic field, then you may have something like a dome, maybe semi-physical or non-physical, period. But the point is I don't think that at some point, this is the whole overarching point, I don't think that that dome or anything is going to touch the ground somewhere south Antarctica, keeping us blocked in like a Truman Show sort of situation. And the reason being is if that was the case, then there would be absolutely no reason for the Antarctic Treaty and to prevent even scientific endeavors from traveling far south from the Antarctic in all directions or sending out autonomous probes and letting us free roam and survey the crap out of the Antarctic. So there would be no motive for them to put in these draconian measures to keep the general population completely unaware and unconcerned with the Antarctic. So again, not to get off on this whole tangent or whatever, when they say things like "where's the edge," it implies a disk flying around in space. Okay, and so there is no possible way, in my humble opinion, that the flat Earth is a disk flying around in space with a dome on the top or something like that. Uh, I'm not going to say what I know that it is because that would be disingenuous. Certainly, I have my theories, but anyway, moving right along. Oh, I think there. No, that was it. Okay, so yeah, where's the edge? So Chris P, I love this guy's posts. Science is ace. Not a single person has proven the existence, their existence. Been waiting since 2013 for someone to provide an image of a satellite and space junk in orbit of a ball Earth. So why would I have to prove they are imaginary? Let's try a little experiment. I imagine there's a bird with arms. Now you go prove they don't exist. So maybe I read that a little wrong. That one's a little lost on me, but let me read it again to myself. Image of satellite. Oh, okay, so yeah, let's try a little experiment. I imagine there's a bird with arms. Now prove to me they don't exist. Oh, okay, yeah, I see what he's saying. Yeah, good analogy. Perfect analogy. So Chris P, because again, what Chris P is saying here is that satellites are something that are not necessarily falsifiable to a definitive degree, because frankly, people don't have the ability to go 20,000 miles in altitude and confirm that the satellite is indeed there. And as we mentioned, you can't look at moving lights in the night sky and say that they prove satellites, right? So this potential shill, maybe not a shill, Lautaro del Jaguar. As Chris P, you can track satellites with an app and see them for yourself. As for ball earthers, there's a Japanese satellite called Himawari taking images every few hours. If you don't want to do any of that, then your problem is denial or laziness. Don't blame science or conspiracies. So again, this guy here is using a lot of language that they're trigger words. Conspiracies, we all know that's a Tavistock Institute weaponized term, conspiracy theory. It's associated by most people as to imply like a right-wing nut job who subscribes to conspiracy theories. Somebody with mental problems, probably does too much drinking and pharmaceutical meds and maybe a little bit of meth on the side or something, right? That's sort of the connotations with conspiracy theory. And so when people throw out these words, basically calling you a tinfoil hatter between the lines, um, that's very deliberate to me. This is sort of an indirect attack on his sanity and character when people start putting these labels on you. But again, what this guy's doing is talking about satellites which don't exist, taking images every few hours. Now, we all know that this day and age, it is 100% possible to take a 3D software and create like a ball. It's probably the easiest thing to do. I can create a ball in a 3D software, add some textures to it, and you got really great artists doing this. To think that because you can see something on TV, something coming from a camera being beamed to your computer, that it must be real. And so you're going to reference this thing that we're telling you don't exist as proof of its existence, something that this thing produces, which could easily be forged. You're going to use this self-reference, which is a terrible way to argue in reality. But it does work with people who believe in the globe because, again, they're going to believe in the globe no matter what when they're reading through these sorts of comments. But who would ever use that sort of argument in this context? Oh, to prove satellites exist, look at this picture that these satellites take. Or to prove the globe Earth, look at this picture that these satellites take. It's you got to sit back and laugh about it a little bit, because anybody who's got two brain cells to rub together is going to realize that this is a self-referencing circular argument that that doesn't prove a thing. And then he ends the comment by saying, that this guy Chris's problem is denial or laziness, and then basically tells him he's anti-scientific and in conspiracies, right? So just it's almost like a haiku of Schillery. So Chris P goes, I made an application that tracks birds with arms. Because the app says they exist, they must exist. That's too funny. There's some other ones here I wanted to cover, and I'll move along to something else. But let me check in with the live chat real quick and see how you guys are doing. Where you at? So yeah, you got a couple of minutes to, or a 30-second delay. You guys want me to keep going with some other ones of these? Are you having fun with this so far? You want me to move on to the next thing? I don't want to bore anyone to death. Oh, and I see in the chat, Globebusters, Candy, I Spy NASA Lives. What's up, guys? Brandon Thar, Don Costi. Wow, lots of good people watching. Yeah, we'll keep going with it then. Yeah, a couple people saying having fun. Yeah, me too. It is a lot of fun to go through these comments, because I'll tell you, these trolls and the flat earthers, when they get into these discussions, it is pretty fun. So I'll keep going with this one for a minute. And I think I'll focus more now on Lataro's responses. Unless something doesn't make sense in context, we'll go back and read one of Chris's. But Chris has some really great comments. I try to thumbs up all of them, because I did read through a lot of these, and she just makes some great points. So Lataro says, the next thing he says is, Chris P, you can track them and see them. If you don't try, it's your own. Let me put this bigger. See if you guys can see it better. Whoop. There we go. If you don't try, it's your own ignorance or laziness. As for all satellite work being done by balloons, can you quote an expert on that? Or is that stuff you're making up? Can you prove that Himawari are stitched images, or is it your personal opinion? Why should I care about your amateur personal opinion? Did any flat earther create anything practical in the last 500 years? Why should we listen to or respect anti-scientists? What do they do for humanity in practice? So these are just, and by the way, this shill here hasn't offered any sort of shred of argument or evidence to support all of these claims that they're making. They're just being argumentative. They're, basically calling this other guy stupid, more or less. It's just very typical of a globe Earth shill. So if Latoro del Jaguar isn't a globe Earth shill, maybe he's found his calling in life. But, when you get to see how much this guy's actually posted on this video, uh, you know, it doesn't add up for me. So where are we at here? Yeah, we're going to go through what this guy just said, because there's some important stuff here. It's almost like they're completely missing just all the points and then making just not even arguments. So, and I guess I do need to read the previous comment, so this will put into context. So let me do that. So Chris P, previous to that, he said, I made an application that tracks birds with arms because the app says they exist, then they must exist, according to your logic. Himawari composite images are stitched together from strips of smaller images to form a perfect sphere. It should be an oblate spheroid, according to your high priests of scientism. Still effing that one up. The images themselves come from high altitude balloons. The image is then overlaid with modeled weather data, which is sourced from ground-based radar. So that's where that response came from. So going through this bit by bit, he says, you can track this and see them. If you didn't try, it's your own ignorance or laziness. Now he's saying you can track these satellites. And here's the thing, again, if you can see satellites, then they're not satellites, because a damn satellite would be too small and too far to see, period. So whatever they're tracking, we know that it's not satellites. Even if you believe the Earth is a globe, even if you're a globe head, you can't believe that you can see a damn satellite, for crying out loud. But yet he's saying you can track and see them, thus debunking satellites in that very sentence, unwittingly. But he says you can track and see them. Well, what are we tracking and seeing is my question. What are they actually seeing? It could be anything, but frankly, it doesn't matter because it's not a satellite. And if it is something that is taking these pictures or doing whatever the satellite's supposed to be doing, then it's a super high altitude craft. And, one thing that I've come to terms with is that if you get up high enough in altitude, most, airplanes all have a ceiling. It's based on the lift capacity of the wing, it's based on the thrust, but the higher up you get in altitude, the thinner the air becomes. Now, this could be a benefit to an aircraft because you have essentially no drag. Now, at the same time, as you increase in altitude and decrease drag, you're also decreasing the ability for the wing to create lift because there's less stuff in the air to push back up on the wing, essentially, and create lift. However, if you could get, and I'm sure that I know for a fact that the military has tons and tons of really, really awesome aviation technology that we probably won't know about till long after we're dead. But I'm certain that they would have the ability to create craft that utilize cutting edge, state of the art technology and wing design to create craft that could probably fly at way faster than anything that we know of. We're talking Mach, I don't even know what. Not orbiting the Earth, but just hauling balls through the super high atmosphere where there's essentially no drag. And if they could somehow keep their lift going, maybe even with lighter than air gases involved somehow, like helium, if you got this thing really light. And I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but I believe it's possible to have something up there flying super high, super fast, and be able to take, do many of the same things that satellites supposedly can do. And so if you can see it, it's either a natural occurring phenomenon that people have been documented lights moving through the night sky for hundreds and hundreds of years. There certainly weren't supposed to be satellites then. So it could be anything, not satellites and whatever on that first part. But so then he goes, if you didn't try to track them, then it's your own ignorance or laziness. So there he goes with a statement that debunks satellites unwittingly. Then he goes into ad hominem. Then he says, as for all satellite work being done by balloons, can you quote an expert on it, or is that stuff you're making up? And so there he goes, insinuating that this guy is lying. Like, why in the world would a flat earther start lying about stuff? I mean, we already have sort of a bad enough stigma on our name as flat earthers to newbies, just by being flat earthers. Why in the hell would we start lying about stuff? I mean, it's just it doesn't make any sense to me at all. So then he says, can you prove that Himawari are stitched images, or is it your personal opinion? Why should I care about your amateur personal opinion? Did any flat earther create anything practical in the last 500 years? Why should we listen or respect anti-scientists? What do they do for humanity in practice? Well, I would say that flat earthers are basically like Neo pulling humanity out of the frickin' pink goo of the Matrix, flushing them down that little toilet and then picking them up on the frickin' Nebuchadnezzar, you know? So, what have flat earthers done? We're trying to give you the complete truth during a lifetime full of lies on a world that you have no idea what the hell's going on. Trying to give you some bearing, some context that you maybe could use to improve yourself to some extent, because everybody that becomes a flat earther mostly reports self-improvement, except me. No. So, okay, so then he goes, can you prove that Himawari are stitched images, or is it just your personal opinion? Why should I care about your amateur personal opinion? So yes, I'm sure that Chris P up here is just stating his personal opinions by giving specific, a specific rundown of what the process that they used here for the Himawari composite. Did any flat earther create anything practical in 500 years? Why? Oh, this is the one that got me. So why should we listen or respect anti-scientists? And this to me is so ironic, because the scientific method, being a scientist, involves testing hypothesis, as like that's the fundamental purpose of science in the first place, is testing hypothesis, period. And so if you refuse to test hypothesis, then in fact, excuse me, then you would be the one that's anti-scientific. Now, people do confuse scientism, or theoretical sciences, with science. And there's a huge distinction. Theoretical sciences are pseudoscience, mostly. Actually, I would say probably all of them, but certainly astrophysics, atomic physics, many of these theoretical sciences are pseudoscience. And the definition of pseudoscience is essentially claims that cannot be verified, cannot be falsified, which means, like, again, satellites being up there 22,000 feet. Nobody has the ability to travel there and verify that it's there, so it is therefore non-falsifiable, right? So if it's non-verifiable, non-repeatable, non-falsifiable, then that puts it in the categorical definition of pseudoscience. So theoretic, and this same thing goes for nuclear science. These are all theoretical pseudosciences, and they shouldn't even be called sciences. They should just be called, theoretical hyperbole or lyaretical physics, but lyaretical hypotheticals. Um, So again, he says, why should we listen to or respect anti-scientists when he, in fact, is the anti-scientist by refusing to listen or respect somebody that is making scientific claims? Scientific claims should be tested, but instead what they do is ridicule. But again, what they're defending, what they're doing is they're defending their devout belief in theoretical, hypothetical, quote unquote liance, right? That's what they're defending. And so they are defending pseudoscience, but this is more than just pseudoscience because it is, in fact, the basis for the modern paradigm, starting, I would say, with the Copernican principle hundreds and hundreds of years ago, which the Copernican principle is basically, in a nutshell, that nothing in the universe is central, special, or unique. Essentially, the universe is, for all intents and purposes, infinite, and there is absolutely nothing special or unique about you or me or the Earth or the solar system. If the entire galaxy were to fall out of existence right this instant, it would absolutely not make any sort of difference in the grand scheme of things. And it is this really quite frightening view of the universe that I adhered to for the majority of my life. That is I believe, the underlying cause for many of the problems that we have in society today, because people are indoctrinated with not only relativity, but moral relativity, and of course, this whole atheistic or even nihilistic view of the world and others, and ultimately themselves, because it is hard to find any sort of meaning to things in the random, chaotic, Copernican principle universe. Now, the Copernican principle isn't just a principle. It's not just like an idea. It is a fundamental cornerstone premise that all theoretical physics must follow. Theoretical astrophysics must follow, even to this day, the Copernican principle, which means that nothing is central, special, or unique. The universe is chaos. Any theoretical astrophysics that doesn't adhere to the Copernican principle will never ever make any sort of peer review or anything like that. And so what this has become is essentially a religion of theoretical liance, which people believe, if you are a devout follower and believer of theoretical science's doctrines and dogmas, that makes you scientific. However, they are the opposite of scientists because they refuse to consider anything outside of the realm of what is in their pre-approved Copernican principled paradigm. Say that 10 times fast. So what do flat earthers do for humanity in practice? Well, we go around lying about the earth being flat because we just get a hoot out of being called morons all the time. Yeah, that's one of my favorite pastimes. Moving right along, and I was being sarcastic there. Mr. Fox says, Litoro del Jaguar, a giant spinning ball rocket hurtling over 1,000,000 miles per hour through endless nothingness, experiencing 5 different directional changes, yet never feeling a thing because men on television say so. Congratulations on believing all the propaganda. It's a wake-up time, guy. So let's see here. This Litoro del Jaguar goes on for a while, and there was a couple other ones of his I did want to read because they're just so typical for globe Earth stupidity. No offense, just a categorical generalization. Wasn't talking about anybody in particular. But this guy here says, where is it? Chris P says, I don't care what you do or don't consider. You have just admitted to being an indoctrinated pseudo-intellectual who is incapable of using critical thinking. When presented with the information and arguments that you cannot process, your cognitive dissonance kicks in and you run away from the discussion like a little girl. Let's go down a few notes on Lotoro so others can get a quick summary. So 1 claims Himawari composites with hard edges and perfect spheres are actually photos. 2 claims that there are satellites in orbit without providing evidence. 3 claims that you can track and view satellites without providing evidence. 4 believes Himawari composites are real, even though it's in direct opposition to claims by physicists that the Earth is an oblate spheroid. 5 claims there are no sources to balloons providing satellite services, even though the U.S. military, U.S. Marines, government, and every large radio carrier use TCOM, Aerostat, or other balloons, El Lobos. So for anyone that claims they can track satellites in an app and view them with a telescope, please do this simple experiment. And you can read through this. I urge you guys to read through that comment, but Latoro goes on to say, Chris P., your personal amateur opinion changes nothing, and there is no reason I would waste my time discussing science with someone who never took the time to study it. If you wanted to learn, you'd be studying instead of asking questions on YouTube comments. Flat earthers are by definition useless, so they have nothing to teach. All your points above are wrong or false. You are a random amateur refusing to learn, no influence in the present, no consequence in the future. So, I mean, just what a mouthful. This guy here, and I should probably just ban him from my channel because all he's doing is just harassing people and being negative, but at least he's not like cussing people out. So, but it's very disrespectful, some of these things he's saying. So responding to what he's saying here to Chris P., who I'd like to hang out with this guy one day. He seems pretty cool. So he says, your opinion changes nothing. There's no reason I'd waste my time discussing science with someone who never took the time to study it. If you wanted to learn, you would be studying instead of asking questions on YouTube comments. So 2 insults. And then he goes to, he's saying that if you wanted to learn, you should be studying instead of asking questions on YouTube comments. Well, if you wanted to be doing something for the world, Lortoro, what exactly are you doing trolling flat Earth videos, YouTube comments, and then being a total hypocrite and saying that flat Earthers should be doing something else instead of being in these comment sections here where you absolutely don't belong. You stick out like a sore thumb. And the only reason I can think that you're here making comments is because you're paid to do so. That's just my personal opinion. But flat earthers are by definition useless. Yeah, so that's a pretty blanket statement. Is that hate speech? Should we go start Flatty Lives Matter too, and we could like have him put into like a FEMA camp prison because he offended me? I'm so offended. I'm so offended. Yeah. So, oh, and then of course he makes the very astute and coherent and cogent argument. Now this is one of the most compelling arguments I've heard. He says, quote, all your points above are wrong or false. Yep, you heard it here, folks. We should pack up our bags as flat earthers. It's all downhill from here. Latoro just really kicked the whole movement's ass by saying that we are wrong or false. The points are wrong or false. Yep. So then he says, you're a random amateur. I think that's, what is that, the 3rd or the 4th time he's called this guy an amateur? Refusing to learn. No offense in the present, no consequence, no influence in the present, no consequence in the future. So, this just paints such a clear picture to me of the globe earth mindset. Now, is this part of the psychological operation so that we flat earthers begin to view all globetards like this? Well, somebody on this page here, because it's kind of working. I don't know. I mean, I try to have discussions with people who believe that the earth is a globe because I was there before, and I probably wouldn't have started commenting on flat earth videos when I first heard about it, but my knee-jerk reaction when I first heard about flat earth was that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Nobody could ever possibly believe that. And I didn't look at it again for like 6 months. But I couldn't see myself going online and just trolling the crap out of all these flat earthers day and night, spending all these hours. And I don't know how much time this guy does on it, but there's a lot of them that spend a lot of time on this thing. I just couldn't see myself doing that without getting in, digging in, and doing the research and looking at this topic with an open mind. Because that's really all that it takes. I mean, anybody that's made the journey from a globe earther to a flat earther knows that really the only thing you have to do is give the damn thing a chance and look at it rationally and skeptically, and you'll definitely notice there's some points to be had. Now, of course, it's very, very, very difficult to psychologically break away from the globe. It really is almost impossible without other flat earthers out there helping you along. And so that's one thing I say we're doing for humanity. But, like, I just don't see, honestly, I don't see how flat Earth ever came out, because it's so hard to believe, it's so hard to grasp, and without people pointing you in the right direction, at least in my opinion, or maybe just stumbling on it, maybe it could happen by happenstance somehow, I don't know. But I just don't see how it even got out without people helping one another to look at it and showing them different things and proofs and stuff, and helping them understand the mechanics of it and whatnot. To me, I think it's a miracle. But um, I guess the point that I was trying to make is that people like this, they want to prevent people from having this awakening. And that to me is clear. I have no idea what motivates them, and I can only guess that it's money. But the point that I wanted to make was that these sort of people, because they just post so much over and over again, and they all admit to have sock puppet accounts, so it seems like there's dozens of them, and maybe there's two. But they really do start to make you have really negative sort of feelings towards globe earthers in general, especially if they just absolutely refuse to listen to reason. They won't engage in a constructive conversation. They won't give you the benefit of the doubt for argument's sake. Like it's impossible for a staunch globe earth zealot in the religion of scientism. It's impossible for them to, give you a hypothetical thing for argument's sake just to see where it goes. And again, that to me is about as anti-scientific as you can possibly get, because it defies the fundamental purpose of science in the first place, which again is to test hypotheses, especially if said hypotheses disagree with current standing hypotheses. So yeah, so I guess I got through the majority of these. I mean, this goes on and on and on and on and on with these guys. I mean, this guy spent so much time, and then at some point he changes it, or it seems to me that he changes. There's another one named Timothy, I think, that comes in after Lorenzo disappears. Yeah, there's another one, Timothy Stockman, who just seems very similar to the guy that was up here, whatever his name was. Oh no, this is, yeah, there he is. So satellite's existence has been proven over and over. Many pictures exist, taken from the ground through telescopes or from space vehicles which have rendezvoused. The problem is that you don't believe that satellites or pictures of them exist. You could prove to yourself that you can prove to yourself they do if you wish, but you would rather remain in the dark. So again, here he is with just, insults and basically calling him a lazy researcher, and it's just the same exact style as that previous guy. And you see this a lot. They'll switch up sock puppet accounts in mid conversation to make it seem like there's more people involved in the conversation on the globe earth side than there are, because again, this is a battle. It's a psychological battle for the minds of people who are looking at this for the first time. And if you don't read comments on YouTube videos, a lot of people do. And if you've never tried it, sometimes it can be really, really fun just to read down through the threads. Never ending fun, especially when everybody's calling you a moron and like I should go die and jump off a cliff. That's one of the best pastimes ever, let me tell you. So yeah, Timothy Stockman says, you obviously understand very little of what you talked about. You don't understand satellites, GPS, nor the air traffic control system. So these are their arguments. I mean, and it always is. It's like, oh, you don't understand this. You don't understand this. Okay, so, give me an example and prove the Earth has frickin' curvature, for crying out loud. But yeah, this thing goes on, and there's some good stuff in here. Probably some more stuff that I wanted to share with you guys because, I did make some responses at the bottom too. So I won't read all those. You know how mine are kind of lengthy, but I responded to a lot of that stuff because I haven't been doing too much responses to comments here lately, but when I do, I guess I sort of go off on it. Now there was another thread, I think, in this same one that I just wanted to cover quickly because there was something, but I may never find again. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here it is right here. So this guy, Arlo Jeremy, goes, why do you, Jaron, and seemingly every other flat earther think that the mainstream claim is that cell phones communicate with satellites? No cell phone does or has ever connected to satellites. Satellite phones, yes, but not cell phones. Different technology. Jaron has said multiple times that he shouldn't lose his cell signal when going through a mountain pass when he's driving because he's closer to the satellites. Satellites have nothing to do with it, and it makes sense that you lose your signal on with the ground-based towers were blocked. Why would I trust anything else you have to say when all of you repeatedly get such a simple fact wrong? Nobody is claiming cell phones connect to satellites. You are the only guys who seem to think that is the claim. And it's so funny because, and maybe I should just read my response to her, and I'll end this little section of the video presentation here because I don't want to have to reiterate what I said to her, but I think I pretty much nailed it when I typed it, so I'll just read it. Okay, so it is certainly implied and believed by globbers that cell phones work due to satellites. The point is, cell phones have never and never will use satellites at any stage. What about satellite dishes, say for DirecTV? Will you claim they don't purport to use satellites? If not, then I can assure you that the generic ass plastic dish on the side of our homes are not communicating with a satellite some hundreds or thousands of miles up in altitude. Please watch my previous video. Satellites do not exist, are unnecessary, and impossible for a deeper dive into the topic. At any rate, another thread on this very video here, a Globe Earth troll is claiming that GPS purports to use satellites in the very patent. Are you calling your fellow Glober a liar? Whether or not GPS or cell phones are purported to utilize satellites, many people have been led to believe that's the case. Just like many people are led to believe that weather radar animations, like on weather.com, are satellite images. While that may not be the official position or the wiki explanation, it's implied, and people are led to believe it. But as you surely know, Doppler radar is a ground-based system which has nothing to do with satellites. Yet many globbers believe that to be the case. And is that really the best argument that you can come up with after all of the points made in this video? An argument in semantics? Again, scroll up a few threads and find one started by Flat Earth Dude with over 70 replies as I type this, where one of your fellow globbers states several times, GPS, quote, GPS has satellites on the patent, end quote, under no uncertain terms. So while we're saying that GPS does not use satellites, your rebuttal is GPS does not lose satellites, dummies. That's a very well thought out argument and all, but we're responding to the overwhelming claims made by globbers that satellites must exist because GPS uses satellites in the very patents. In case you hadn't noticed, we are not the ones making this claim. involving satellites being used here. We're saying they are not. Yet you are agreeing with me and then proceeding to tell me that I'm wrong and that you can't trust anything that I say. Even though Globbers in this very video comment section, just a few threads above here, are clearly claiming that GPS uses satellites. I mean, this is just too bizarre, and I must say, are there any other points you'd like to agree with me on and then call me incorrect and untrustworthy about? Wow. So, yeah, I really just got a kick out of this comment thread. It really is a lot of fun to go through this, and there weren't any threats against me in this one, but I just hate to see globe Earth trolls trying to I don't know, just trying to undermine what we're doing here by very sneaky, subversive, underhanded psychological tactics that are geared to maybe try to push our buttons and make us think we're stupid at some level, but they know that that's not going to work because you're not going to unflat Earth a flat earther. You're not going to revert a flat earther back into a globetard. It's never going to happen. So again, this would be like a damage control thing where, of course, like I said, they've got YouTube doing this sort of soft censorship, and you've got, by making our videos harder to come by, even by our subscribers, and then you've got these trolls as sort of a safety net for anybody that might stumble upon your videos for the first time and reading the comment sections to see, wow, is this legit? And they find all this argumentative bull crap where these people already have science and the vast belief of most people on their side. And so the best thing they can do for damage control is not make any valid arguments and just sort of go on the attack against us and hope that enough people get turned off by this whole argument. So where do we go from here? I was going to do another one, but I don't know if I want to spend too much time. Wow, it's already 1:30. I have to be at work. Oh my God. Oh no, I don't have to be to work till 8 tomorrow, so I get to sleep in. We're golden. And what I wanted to do, let me go back over to the live stream so I can see the comments a minute, if I can keep it caught up with them. And I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to pop in and hang out for a minute, maybe not too long, but what I'll do is I'll send out a couple of links. And I need to grab my phone too real quick. Bear with me 1 second, you guys, because crap. There was one person that I had invited to the show to join, and okay, and I hadn't heard back. So let me send out a link over to Candy. Did you want to pop in here? Karen B. Let me know if you guys want to pop in here for a little while. Bob. Wow, I'm picking all the mods. No offense, anybody else. They're just blue, and they're the ones I noticed. Flat Plain, Oregon, what's up? Yeah, but Karen B, Glowbusters, and I Spy NASA Lies, if you guys would like to join, let me know, and I will send you a link. Okay. Okay, so bear with me, you guys. I'm not good at multitasking when it comes to live streaming. Oh, and I'm still sharing my screen, aren't I? Let me stop sharing, and hopefully I will be able to. Yay. Okay, so I stopped sharing for now. And what I want to do is I want to share a link with everybody. Well, not everybody, but several people. Okay, and so I'm going to send Candy, I will send you the link right there in the Gmail chat box. And if you could forward that to Karen B, I don't know if that's possible, if Karen B wants to pop in, and Bob. I didn't see if Bob said he wanted to pop in or not, if he's even still here. I didn't know. Yeah, Bob's still here. Um, I'll go ahead and, Bob, I'll send you a link in case you would like to. I'll send it to the Bob at Jeranism. Uh, bear with me, guys. Sending out links. Sending out links. Okay, and let's see here. If anybody else that's in the chat, I maybe grab one more person if you want to pop in. If you already said it once, forgive me if I missed it. But Jose Menze, hip hop hippie. I don't know. Man apart. What's my take on the volcanoes? Well, they're hot. No, I'm just kidding. That was probably very insensitive of me. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that there was some in Guatemala, right, pretty recently. And then, of course, we've got the one in Hawaii. The one in Guatemala kind of hit kind of close to home to me. I worked with well, it was an orphanage, the God's Child Project that was based out of Guatemala, and they were affected by the volcano. So, hopefully we can get some prayers out to the people of Guatemala and, of course, Hawaii, unless there's other volcanoes that I'm not aware of. I know the Yellowstone caldera is been talking about it's fixing to blow, but I don't know exactly which ones. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Lots of volcanoes going around. Um, so trying to scroll back down. Super oxygenated. Okay. Schuler Hart says super oxygenated water, super hyper clear water, Russia caves, unreal. So I asked BF, do any of you believe in SSP, secret space program, or not? Does it apply to flat Earth? In my opinion on the secret space program is I believe that there are definitely secret technologies, and perhaps you could call it a space program, because if you're dealing with aviation that has the ability to somehow maintain lift when it gets above the ceiling of most super high altitude aircraft, that would also, in my opinion, I've considered this because if they're doing super parabolic maneuvers like the Vomit Comet, only they're doing it at super high altitudes where there's very low drag, and they have the ability to get to tremendous speeds. I could see them doing that to fake, some of these, well, maybe not spacewalks, but the interior shots. But I believe more and more these days that they're using CG, virtual reality, and green screen chroma key technology to and harnesses to fake the interior ISS shots and whatnot. But the secret space program, yeah, to a degree. I mean, I don't think that there's aliens, and aliens is a bad word. Extraterrestrials is probably not a bad word, because if there's more land outside of what we understand to be Earth, those could still be, literally called extraterrestrials, right? At least from our opinion. Um, but I've always been a fan of Richard Dolan for quite a while before I came to Flat Earth and after, because I think that there may be something to what sightings, people that have had sightings and abductions, there may be something to it. Now, that doesn't mean that aliens or whatever are coming from other planets, right? They could be coming from somewhere extraterrestrial outside of the typical path of the sun. Oh, so it looks like we got Karen B and Candy. What's up, ladies? Hello.
Hey, what's going on, John? Long time.
OnStar.
Yes.
Hey, how you been?
Good. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, long time no talk. And Candy, how you been? I guess she's probably still muted. Um, okay, so I watched a couple of your fairly recent videos. Good stuff, Karen B.
Oh,
And you've been doing some kind of a hangout. I caught like one or maybe one or two episodes of it where you're like hosting with another dude that's like, I mean, obviously it's flat earth stuff, but I thought it was really well done too.
what are you talking about?
It was like, I don't know, you were doing like some kind of a show with a dude and it was flat earth stuff and it was really good though. You didn't do that? That had to have been you.
I I don't know. I
Oh.
really haven't been doing very many hangouts lately.
Well, it might not have been so lately. Maybe I saw it a month ago, but honestly, I don't know how old it was when I saw it. So,
I don't know.
oh, okay, well, cool. Okay.
I don't know.
Um, but you put out a video within the last month or so too?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah, yeah. So, anything you've been working on up to good stuff?
Um, well, I've actually been kind of busy with personal stuff here lately, but I
Yeah.
do I do have some stuff that I've been working on
Mhm.
with a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Some debunk videos.
Oh yeah, those are the best.
Yeah.
I love doing those because there's never a shortage. And it's almost like if you search YouTube for flat Earth proof, you'll find more flat Earth debunking videos than you will flat Earth proponent videos. So there's never a shortage of those, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're in fact some of us are supposed to be working on a we're going to be working on a video to debunk a video that came out directly directed at flat earthers here recently. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you saw it, the 20 questions flat earthers can't answer.
Uh-huh.
So, a
Oh
bu-
no.
yeah, yeah, and it's like a group of it's like a bunch of different YouTubers that got together and they all asked different questions. And so I thought it would be great if a bunch of flat earth YouTubers got together and sort of rebutted it, you know. And then not only rebutted what they asked us, answer their questions, but then ask them questions that Globers can't answer.
Yeah.
Because we all know there's plenty of those, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't want to talk too much about that now, but I will I'll talk to you about it when we get off of the live stream. Gosh, I must be seeming like so covert and creepy right now, but I promise you there's a reasonable explanation for it. Okay.
Okay, no, that's fine. I don't want to talk too much about it now either. That's about all
Right.
I want to say about it anyway.
Okay. Well, no, that's good though. Yeah, those are always the best ones to do because it's just so easy, I think, because you know that the arguments that they come up with are not going to hold water. And people call that closed-mindedness or confirmation bias for flat Earth or whatever. But the fact is that we've seen so many quote unquote deal-breaking proofs and arguments against flat Earth, and then you get into one like that, and they're still coming up with things. I think one of the guys said that the flat Earth disk in space is supposedly rising upward at 9.8 meters per second or something. I think he actually used
Yes,
that in one,
yes. A
right?
bunch of them are the really same old standard, very weak arguments like, "Oh, look at the other planets in space like Saturn and Jupiter. They're all spheres and so the Earth's not a sphere." Like that typical kind of crap is in there, so, you know.
Right? Yeah, yeah. It's so silly. It really is. But
And they get that claim from the Flat Earth Society.
right. Yeah, totally. And that's one
Hi,
of the.
by the way.
Hey, how's it going? How you been?
I'm good.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. But yeah, it's like when I remember first coming into flat Earth, that was one of the things that I ran into, and I thought that's just absolutely ridiculous. But then shortly thereafter, I come to find out that was not a claim made by any flat earthers except for the ones that are trying to discredit flat earth, because it is so silly. I mean, again, it's another one of those things where they're trying to merge infinite space and the heliocentric model with the, this disk and flying around in space or whatever. Another one that they had made was like the sun for like during lunar eclipses. When the sun goes below the disk of the Earth, then why don't lunar eclipses always happen at night? It's so stupid. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
I might fall off in a second because I'm walking the dog.
Okay, and actually, I have to. I wanted to get you guys on for a minute just to like say hey and see what y'all had been up to and just chat for a minute. But like honestly, I have to get up at let's see, I have to be to work at 8, so I have to get up at 6:30. So if I went to sleep right this second, I could get less than 5 hours of sleep. So we probably, if you guys are cool with it, maybe hang on for another 15 minutes or so and talk about a couple things and like maybe go through some more of these comments and stuff or whatever sort of globe earth crap we've run into, and maybe wrap it up pretty quick, because honestly, I started this thing at 11:45. I can't believe I've already been on here for 2 hours. Like, that is just crazy.
Yeah, I didn't see your message until I said like you had already been streaming for.
Mm.
Shit.
Oh well, no, I totally got carried away with it, and before I knew it, I figured I had been on for about 20 minutes, and yeah, it was 2 hours. Yeah, but yeah, no, so we can still keep chatting away for a little while if you guys want to, but not too much longer, because like honestly, I got up at 5:30 this morning and then worked. Oh my God, I had the funniest day today. I went to do a job at like this really, really nice mansion, and the house is on a lake, and the entire lake had flooded up into their backyard, to his huge backyard, to where there were literally, and it's been like that for a while. I mean, it's like a pond, it's like a swamp in their backyard of this really, really nice mansion. And they've literally got like fish jumping around in the pond in their backyard. And so like it was just grueling work in the sun, like really, really hot. And it was just so much. Oh, but the funny thing is the guy that owned the house is apparently like the Bob Vila of Canada, or the Bob Vila of Ontario or something. He's got like some sort of home improvement show on like some Canadian television. I'd never heard of him or seen him before, but I was told by a friend who this guy is. And so anyway, it was just kind of strange, because that doesn't typically happen when you're doing jobs for the company that I'm working through. But anyway, yeah, fun day. And I got to go back there tomorrow. It's like it's going to be an all weekend project. But
Did you tell him the Earth was flat?
it's kind of weird, because the guy that owned the house was there for maybe, out of all day, he was there for maybe 20 minutes. So no, I didn't get a chance to bust flat earth on him, but maybe on Sunday when the job's over, I'll tell him all about it. I'd hate to have him fire me on Saturday.
Make sure you get your paycheck first.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, and before I had found out that he's like the Bob Vila of Canada, he told me that he was going to give us a good tip if we finish the job up on time by Sunday. So yeah, I'm probably not going to drop any flat Earth bombs on him until I get paid. I've got sort of an aversion to mixing flat Earth with clientele or whatever. I guess there's a old rap song about that. Never get high on your own supply. No, that's not it.
Don't shit where you eat.
Yeah, don't shit where you eat. That's what it is. Not to say that flat earthing is shit, but it's all in
it's just an expression.
It's all in the eye of the beholder too, right? Isn't it?
Right.
Oh man. So Man, I was like, really though, I had so much fun reading those comments. I got a bit carried away there, didn't I? Wow.
They are so ridiculous. The things that these people say, it's like they're making fun of us and telling us how stupid we are, and I kind of feel sorry for them. It's like you just don't even know how stupid you sound saying these things to us.
Right. Yeah, it's so ironic. It really is because I love it when they say that flat Earth is anti-science
Yeah.
because
Why do you guys hate science so much?
right, right, and it's like, okay, so we are doing experiments, we're challenging hypothesis, we're forming our own hypotheses and testing them, we're finding evidence that clearly points that your hypothesis is wrong, yet we're anti-science because you refuse to look at, the evidence that we're pointing to. I mean, right? I mean, how freaking hypocritical.
Right. They're
Yeah.
anti-truth, I guess, anti-science.
Yep. Anti-scientism religion is more like it, which I will definitely agree to that. So looking at the comments, Bob says, we hate scientism indeed. I made a video the other day about 5G and satellites. Do you guys know much about the whole 5G thing rolling out?
A little bit.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into it at all. I saw something yesterday about it that kind of blew my mind. How they have to have a tower within 100 to 200 meters of each one in order for it to work, and that kind of blew my mind.
Right.
I haven't looked into it at all.
Yeah, I know it's kind of contributing to them cutting down a lot of trees so they can put up more towers and have a clear signal between the towers.
Well, see, this is the thing about it. Like, it's going to be, instead of like towers per se, they don't even have to have towers. And it's not so much anything about line of sight either. What they're going to do is, because they're using ultra super high frequency RF waves in the millimeter wavelength, like 68 gigahertz. And so these types of RF waves are not very good at traveling long distances, and they're also not very good at penetrating through solid objects like walls and stuff, where, the standard towers that we have today, they're very, very high up and they reach a very, very large area, and they penetrate very well through walls and such. So what they're going to have with the 5G stuff is like little microwave oven size, maybe a little bit bigger than a microwave oven, units, like boxes that can be basically just slapped up onto existing telephone poles and slapped up onto existing, structures that are, kind of high up, but they're going to put them like a couple 100 feet, not a couple 100 meters if I'm not mistaken, but it's like maybe 200 to 500 feet. So yeah, maybe a couple 100 meters, whatever. But so the thing is, though, is it's kind of dangerous because you're talking about radiation that's on par with the scanners at the airports, and there's good evidence to support that that cause cancer, like, terribly. I think there was a 25% rise in TSA cancer since they started introducing those scanners, cancer, and so that's pretty good, maybe circumstantial or medical evidence that these sort of frequencies and millimeter wavelengths are causing cancer. And with the whole 4G towers and Wi-Fi and the frequencies that we use right now, there's lots of health effects. People are coming up with all sorts of things, heart palpitations, and even cancers. I mean, it's radiation. But when they get into these just super pervasive, super high frequency, millimeter wavelength um, boxes or towers, if you will, all over the place, just literally, just it'll be so pervasive, and it's gonna, from what people have started studying, and because there's like from what I gather, there's some communities where they've started implementing these things for like test runs, and people are getting sick, especially the young children and the elderly. And so What's happening though is the Federal Trade, not the Federal Trade Commission, the FTCC. Is that the one I'm looking for? It's the one that's in charge of communications or whatever. I think it's
FCC.
FCC, whichever one it is. But instead of being a consumer watchdog, like they're supposed to be protecting us in different ways from the big communications and radio industry, what they're doing is well, they're basically in bed together. The government watchdog organizations that should be protecting us are like the guy who's the head of it, used to be CEO for one of these big communications companies that are wanting to roll out 5G. And so instead of doing the necessary long-term clinical studies to see how it affects people, instead of being cautious and instead of abiding by city ordinances that are going to prevent, or not prevent, but maybe delay the implementation of 5G technology, well, the federal government is going to take steps to actually fast track the whole thing.
Because they're in bed together.
And they're going to they're going to basically do it without any of the clinical trials and any of the necessary steps to ensure safety. They're it's just absolutely crazy, because not only are they not doing their job in terms of protecting us from these evil communications corporations that want to roll out 5G because they have an agenda, they're actually helping to expedite the process and not do anything whatsoever to protect us. So they're not only are they doing a poor job, but they're intentionally doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that this goes far beyond the opportunities that they think that they are, that's a money-making thing, but it goes far beyond what the upgrade is claimed to be for. I mean, this is going to be the way that they track everything, like the Internet of Things. It's going to be real-time tracking of everything. And I'm quoting this guy who's the head of the FTC or whatever. Basically, he says that everything from pill bottles to plant waterers will be linked up to the internet. And so you have that. So it's going to be presented to us as a convenience thing. But what it really is I think that they are intentionally wanting to essentially microwave us and radiate us. But it seems like that the 5G technology would be able to target people more specifically. And of course, they're going to be able to track people way better and to a much, much more accurate extent, and possibly even, I mean, the implications are just, who knows what it'll evolve into.
Well, I
But
understand like the microwave thing, what you're saying, but wouldn't that include themselves and their families and all? Just like the chemtrails, why I don't believe that they're spraying these harsh chemicals like people assume they are. Obviously, they're spraying something, but just like that, I mean, they're not going to kill themselves with killing in the process of killing us. I mean, that's crazy to even think
right.
that. So I don't know about the whole microwaving us thing, because that would include themselves and their families as well. So I don't know if that's really it. More maybe the tracking stuff. That sounds more impossible. But I don't know. This whole thing with people saying that they're trying to kill us with this 5G, it just doesn't make much sense to me.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. Like, it seems to me, and I don't know too much about it, but from my limited gatherings, it could be more targeted. So while you may be in literally, I don't know, like maybe a shopping mall or a crowded city street with hundreds of other people, and they could target you out without affecting anyone else.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Because they have your phone number and your phone and whatever you're carrying that on your person, and they have a direct line to you.
Right. And here's another sort of interesting thing that I've heard may be coupled with this. These same frequencies that they're using, if they were to be focused for some nefarious either crowd control or maybe even lethal use, or maybe slow kill use, if you were to have, let's just say, a transceiver chip like the size of the grain of rice in your hand, embedded in your hand, and you could also use it to scan for your credit cards and go to the doctor or whatever. But one of these chips could produce sort of interference waves that could filter out the harmful stuff from the person that has that chip. And so this is kind of going off on the deep end a little bit, but what if after 5G is implemented, and they're going to do it, there's really nothing we can do to stop them except perhaps if everybody in the United States or in the world decides to one day go and just break down all of the 5G boxes, go like, I don't know, chop down the thing that it's on or shoot it with a shotgun or something. I don't know. I'm not condoning or suggesting violence, but if everybody just shut the damn things down. But other than that, they're going to do it. And so it could very easily come to a point to where they are basically bombarding us with these lethal or harmful RF waves via the 5G equipment, and then selling the American people on the idea that this is some freak, disease, and you have to have a cure for it, and the only cure for it is going to be to get this chip. And I think if it was something like that, maybe a lot of people who say right now that they would never get chipped would indeed get chipped and get their whole family chipped to avoid going through, I don't know what, lesions popping all over the skin. I don't know
Now
what you
that I
would do
can
with
see
it.
happening.
Right.
For
And
half a second there, I thought you were going to say the only cure is more cowbell.
what is that?
Sorry.
Wow. Now, and here's another thing too, because the 4G technology is indiscriminate, like absolutely. So like whoever's responsible for them, they're getting radiated as much as everybody else. But if you've got psychopaths that are running the show, which I believe we have, then psychopaths really don't care. Maybe they care about their own health. They don't care about the health of like anyone else but themselves, even if we're talking immediate family and children and stuff like that. They don't have the ability to empathize or sympathize with people. So yeah, crazy stuff. So that was like the topics I covered in that video. And I guess the tying connection to this with flat Earth is, if we've got all these satellites in orbit, then why in the hell are they setting up new 5G boxes all over the damn place? And why are they digging or rolling fiber optic cables underneath all the oceans to every continent? If we keep on sending up better and better satellites with better and better technology, I mean, it doesn't make sense why they would need this ground-based infrastructure if satellites were taking care of all that. So it really makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Yep. So listen, I'm so sorry to drag you guys onto this thing for 15 minutes, but I've got to go to bed. But I'm so glad that I was able to get you on for a minute. Man, I would have got you on way earlier to talk with you guys, but like I swear I went on for 2 hours and I figured I was on for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. So it goes to show about my concept of time. But this is the first live stream I've been able to do in 3 months. So it was just sort of a impromptu thing that I decided to do after a very long day of work. And who else would I invite but Karen B and I Spy NASA Lies?
Mm-hmm. You didn't have a strike, did you? Or you just been busy?
No, I had two. What happened was I had two community guideline strikes hit me pretty much back to back. I had made a video a couple years ago about the Boston bombing, and I made another one about the Boston bombing maybe 6 months after that. But these have been on my channel for a long time. Never had any problems with them. Never had community guideline strikes. And then out of the blue, well, about 3 months ago, I got a community guideline strike for bullying and harassment on one of my Boston bombing videos. And so when I noticed that, and when I tried to appeal it, they give you literally like 20 characters, like one line that you can use to draft out your appeal, which, yeah, you're going to make a very convincing and
Just put
compelling.
all caps. This is bullshit.
Yeah,
Especially not the Morgile. He's never going to make any statement in less than 20 characters.
Right.
Ever.
Oh, yeah. No, I was done. Yeah, it was done before I even started, right? But so when I got that and I saw how the appeal process was like a kangaroo court, I decided to take down my other video, even though I hadn't gotten a strike on it. So I completely deleted the other Boston video. And the very next day, I got a community guideline strike for that one. And that one, I couldn't even appeal it because I had deleted the video. And in order to delete the video, you have to go, in order to appeal it, you have to have a video there. So, I couldn't even appeal the second one. So,
Well,
yeah.
shouldn't you have to have a video there to have a strike too?
Right? Exactly.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I deleted the thing, and then it was like the next day or the day after. I think maybe I deleted
Makes
it on
sense to me. Censorship.
right. And actually, I think I deleted it on a Friday, and then it got taken. It got the strike on the following Monday. So yeah, it was really, really weird. And I know that YouTube is sort of targeting and attacking truther channels all across the board. It's not just me, but when you are a victim of indiscriminate censorship, and it just it's frustrating. It's frustrating because
Modern day book burning.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a shame, but hey, they've done a good job of preventing people from talking about Boston bombing anymore. Gosh, I hope they don't give me a strike for just saying the words.
Yeah.
Did y'all ladies have anything you wanted to plug or anything that you wanted to say before we wrap it up?
Not at the moment.
Negative.
Okay. You do?
Negative.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh, negative, Nathan. Okay, well, good. That makes it easy. And I'm going to be doing more live streams again. I have to work all weekend on this project, but I'm trying to do maybe a live stream on Sunday. I don't know, but if you guys are interested in hanging out, just let me know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me. It's good to see y'all again, and thanks everybody out there in the chat for hanging out with me. It's always a pleasure to have you fine people, and God bless you guys. Love y'all, and as always, spread the word, spread the world, and peace.
Peace.
And how do I stop the?
Leave call.
No, I gotta end the broadcast. Sorry, everybody. I'm a Riri here.
End call.
Oh, stop broadcast.